Hey, folks. Happy December, everybody. We're back with Erika Brown. She's the publisher and editor of The Cricket, coming to us from her office in beautiful and historic downtown Manchester by the Sea. Hello, Erika.
I'm doing great, although I have to say I got a COVID vaccine last night, so I'm a little banged up.
Yeah,
A
yeah. I hear ya.
little achy painy, but I guess it's better than the alternative.
Yeah. Which leads us into our big story today, Erika, is what exactly is going on now with the community center, the story that just won't end.
I mean, it's like, you know, I have to tell you, the fact that you opened up that it's December, I gotta say, from the very beginning of November to the end of November, the beginning of December, it's been like a ping pong match to watch this. We've talked about this issue, I think, twice.
At least twice, yeah?
Now, I'm going to tell you this. This is the last time I'm going to speak about this until February
2024?
the 11th. After February the 11th, and you'll find out why. Because I'm just like to try to. It's like a head snapping kind of exercise. You're like we, we.
Mm.
So there you go. All right, you want me to tell you?
All right. I'm standing, but I'm bracing myself. So, all right, whenever you're ready.
All right, so the background is it's the Manchester Community Center, founded 47 years ago, when Gus Means, a successful automotive dealership entrepreneur from Essex, donated a 1920s train cargo hold to for the purposes of a youth center in 1976 because there were too many teens hanging around doing nothing but smoking butts on the streets of Manchester in 1976. And he generously donated this building, which is a 2,000 square foot cargo hold, as I said, for the MBTA, the train station back in the old Pullman days. And that was that. But guess what? He did not. He purposely donated the building, but he didn't donate the land underneath it.
Mhm.
The land is part of a much larger thing now, which is a business condominium and retail condominium place called Harbors Point. And that has been a ticking time bomb apparently for quite a while because it all kind of came to a head in the last several years. So here's why it's been such a headbanging moment. I'm just going to talk about special town meeting, which was the last time we talked about this. Special town meeting in Manchester was on November the 13th. Going into that, there were two Manchester Community Center related articles to vote on. One was the town was going to take over a lease for the Manchester Community Center because the community center its lease with Harbors Point had been terminated, and everyone was saying, "Oh my goodness, this private charity." It's aligned with the Manchester Mothers Club. They do things like the Jingle Bell Walk this past weekend, Santa coming to Masconomo Park, the Easter egg hunt, with bunnies, the Wobblin' Goblin, these like motherhood and apple pie community-oriented things. So of course it caused a lot of outrage when the community center announced in September that it was that its lease had been terminated and it had 60 days to get out. And it was surprised, and this is terrible. And the entire community wanted to say the bad landlord and this community center that was so cherished was being a victim of it. So that's like literally where we went into to town meeting. Well, the town, at the community center's request, had already gone and started to talk to Harbors Point to smooth out the waters. And nobody really knew what the problem was. The community center was saying that they were surprised by this, as I mentioned, but I had heard that this was a long time in coming. This had been years in the making. I also knew that the community center executive director, a woman by the name of Kim Kaner, as of a year and a half ago, reached out to the town and started to look for pieces of land that they might move the building to. So, so this wasn't like out of nowhere, right? So I knew that. I had some indications about that. So the town had successfully come up with a win-win-win, right? Harbors Point was fine with it. They were going to take over the lease. And the town has had some issues that we've talked about. They need land themselves. They need to find some sites for things like new DPW headquarters, a new public safety building, a council on aging senior center, a harbors master's office, public restrooms downtown. So they reached out to Harbors Point. They worked out a deal. I mean, not a deal, but they worked out an understanding of what a deal might look like. The MCC was happy with it. The Harbors Point was happy with it, and the town was happy with it because they said this might be a great place for harbor master's office temporarily, a temporary council on aging kind of venue. spot, and public restrooms, and the community center can continue as if nothing had changed. So this was good, right?
Mhm.
Well, and then I will say one more thing. The whole time, I kind of knew what the issue was. The MCC wouldn't confirm it, which was they were finally asked to pay rent after 30 years of more than 30 years of being rent free, having the privilege of being rent free. Finally, the condo association said, "We'd like you to pay some rent, please, and we'd like you to sign a lease." And they said no. And Kim Kaner, the same woman, she had told me back in September that the rent was $250. And I remember that clearly because I said, $250, is that what this is all about? Like, really? And she called me back later and said, you can't use that. You can't use that. I talked to my treasurer, the treasurer of our organization. And sometimes it's been that, sometimes it's been more, sometimes it's been less. And so I said, okay, then what's the average? What is it? What is it right now, for instance? She goes, oh, we're not going to disclose that information. So I never wrote about it. And I was like, okay, well, but I knew it was not a lot of rent. So anyway, just before town meeting, like a month before town meeting, without telling the town, the MCC put its own article on the agenda for a town meeting. So it was two competing agendas, and then we talked about this. Eminent domain to take over. They wanted the townspeople to empower them to the town would take over the land underneath the building by eminent domain, which was legally problematic. So then on town meeting floor, it's very dramatic. We talked about this before. Everyone was enthusiastically for this, the town, the win-win-win, right? And they overwhelmingly, approved it. And then the article for the community center's eminent domain thing came up, and they went in like a lion, but went out like a lamb. And they basically pulled it on the floor because I don't know why they pulled it, because I haven't spoken to them, but I would imagine it's because they saw the overwhelming support for the common sense solution, right? So everyone thought cooler heads prevailed. There's going to be a 10-year lease. It's going to be good. And this community center can continue for another 47 years.
Plot twist.
Okay, here's the twist. The twist started like literally 2 days after town meeting. 2 days after town meeting, or three, maybe it was 3 days. The community center's board, or their two presidents and the executive director and an attorney, their new attorney, sat down with the town and said, actually, you know what we want you to do? We want you to build into the lease, your lease with Harbor's Point, that we have a period of 2 years to take the building at any time.
Oh, that's
Exactly. So literally the town is like, wait a minute, we're going to use taxpayer money to rent the place and build it out. To build it out, we're going to invest in this building. That would be very problematic, actually, to take taxpayer money for a public good and then let a private, albeit wonderful nonprofit, just take the asset. and thanks. Mm-hmm. So, and I understand that they're like, well, that's our asset. Well, they signed a lease that said if they didn't move it within, they have a lease that said, they had a deadline to announce that they would move it. They had 60 days to move it, right? I think it's 90 days to move it. So that's what they did. And the town was like, what? Okay. Anyway, I'm going to fast forward to what happened a week and a half ago. And this is actually what prompted the article. A week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I've been in touch with the MCC saying, hey, let's talk. And they keep on putting me off. And they keep on saying, like, one of the co-presidents says, oh, I have COVID. Oh, I can't talk right now. And then the last time, but I'm happy to talk to you. So I'm very happy that they're happy to talk to me, and I can't wait till they do. But here's what happened. 2 weeks ago, I reached out and I said, okay, what's going on? The holidays are over, because the holidays weren't a good time for them to talk. So after the holidays, they said, okay, it's after the holidays, let's talk. And the co-president wrote me a note and said, well, actually, it's really in the town's hands. The town holds all the cards, basically. So why don't we wait until that process plays out, and then I'll be happy to talk to you. That's the quote, happy to talk to you.
Everyone's getting happy here.
Okay, yep. Guess what? That night, and this is so funny, that was on a Monday. That night at the select board meeting, the select board asks Gregory Federspiel, the town administrator, what's going on with the lease. And he says very clearly, well, it's actually not in our hands. It's actually, he actually used the same words. He said, it's actually all in the MCC's hands once they release, and they have to formally release the building and the lease, and in order for us to be able to negotiate on their behalf and on our behalf, right? They're aligned, they're partners. One thing I didn't tell you, the MCC didn't share with the town that they were doing that eminent domain article.
Mm.
And then when they were asked about it right before town meeting, like, what gives? Like, how did you do that? Like, why did you do that? They said, oh, it's apparently, the lawyer said this. I wasn't here, obviously. The lawyer said, well, we did that for you. We did that for, that's the stick and you're the carrot. So there's a lot of non-communication going on.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so that was on a Monday night. He says it's in the MCCs. And I said to myself in the audience, I was there at that night, and I said, I heard the exact same opposite from the co-president earlier today in an email, and I have it in writing, right? Literally, I found out later that night, that Monday night, the board of the MCC was meeting and they voted to actually take the building and go it alone and leave the town, even after they asked the town to go in and help them.
Mm.
They were the ones who asked the town to negotiate with Harbors Point.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Are you following me? Because am I being, is this too complicated?
What is going on?
Because it's crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, here's where we are. They are going it alone. They have announced that they are going to move that building. They haven't announced it. They announced to Harbors Point. They said to Harbors Point, and by the way, they never told the town. The town found out from Harbors Point. And they have until February the 10th to move the building. And they seem very confident that that's going to happen. And I have no idea where it's going.
Where are they going? Right.
Yeah, like what's going to happen with it. And the truth is, it's actually not uncomplicated to move a building in general, by the way. But specifically, when you have one that abuts MBTA property, you have to get a special permit from, it's not a permit, it's like a special permission, a state permission that it's not easy. I happen to know this because the property on the other side of the train station went through an upgrade, and I know that that was required. And so if you do any construction, certainly moving something, but any construction project, you have to get permission from the MBTA. That they have to do, then they would have to, depending on where it moves, they'd have to get zoning permission to do it from the town, I would imagine. And then we don't know where it's going to go. And then they have 180, I think it's 187, I have it right here, $187,000, 139, it's $187,000 in the bank as of their last IRS tax filing. And so is that enough money to kind of, unless, and I'm sure they have a white knight, they have somebody with money, a spot, and connections, because they're going to need all three to kind of move it by February the 10th. I don't know what the plan is. I will say this in all seriousness, because it has been kind of entertaining for me to tell the story, right? But the truth is, this is a community center that actually has a lot of great programming. And I think the biggest loser in this whole thing is the Manchester Mothers Club, which probably is, I'm imagining, the #1 partner. They do more things through the community center than any other group, I would imagine. They're certainly the biggest, highest profile events, right? These big community oriented things are done by the Mothers Club in partnership with the community center. And they're kind of the biggest, they would be the biggest loser if the community center weren't around. And that is such a shame. It's a shame, but there you have it. It's tough. And here's the thing that I can't believe. This whole avalanche was created by one pebble, right? And what's that pebble? That pebble is $2,400 a year in rent.
You can't cover that with 189 grand?
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. All of this ruckus was caused because and by the way, when they were first asked to pay rent, it was for like, oh, we've got to pave the parking lot. That stuff costs money. So just chip in a little bit. And remember, rent free for over 30 years.
Right. They're not asking for backed rent. They're asking for you. Yeah.
Exactly. But apparently I think this might be the source of the miscommunication or the relation. You have to get to the therapists say you got to get to the point of disrespect, the moment of disrespect. And I think the moment of disrespect is that this literally is me not knowing what I'm talking about, but I can't make sense of it. And I'm wondering if maybe the MCC literally thought that it was their right to be rent-free. Do you know what I mean? Like it was somehow part of the gift that they were going to not have to pay any rent, because when they were asked to pay rent, their initial response was no. we're not paying rent. We're a community center. And you're like, yeah, but you're a private tenant and you're a private nonprofit and you actually have a landlord. This isn't like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I mean, do
whatever.
they look at other like neighboring community centers and see how they operate?
That's
You know?
actually an excellent point. I don't know, and I should do that actually. I should do that. That's my job. I should do that, and I will, because I'm already thinking that way for a couple of things that are coming up that have nothing to do with community centers. So you're absolutely right. That's exactly what should happen.
Hmm.
How's it done everywhere else?
Interesting stuff, huh?
Maybe I'll find out it's eminent domain, huh?
Another new plot twist. Yeah, we're back.
Eminent domain, it's a thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's that. So anyway,
All right. Well, great stuff, Erica, as always.
yeah. You want to know what I'm doing this week?
Yeah, what's you up to?
Okay, this week is going to be a big Essex week, I think, for me, because there's two big public hearings this week. One of them has to do with planning, because the planning board is now going to start to shape that big general district they created at their special town meeting. And the hard work is going to start happening now, and that's going to be really interesting. They have their first meeting this week, and it's a public hearing. And then the second public hearing actually is tonight, and that is the Board of Selectmen over there are going to have a tax classification hearing. And I know that sounds so boring, but it's actually not, because like every other municipality, and this is what I'm going to check other municipalities, like we were just talking about, like most municipalities, I believe, they have one property tax. They have one tax rate, right? And they're going to explore different tax rates with the idea of coming up with something that is going to be a little bit of a property tax reprieve for older people and people who don't make as much money. And that is really key to a lot of sort of community angst. And I think that'll be a very interesting thing to start watching. And then the last thing that's happening in Essex is all the holiday stuff, Santa by boat, all that other stuff. So that's all happening this week. So there you go. It's a big Essex thing.
Try to get out and enjoy yourself, Erica.
I will.
Yeah. But great coverage as always. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your time. And we will talk to you this time next week.
All righty. Bye.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.